Hello everyone, welcome to the final episode 6 of Career Series 2nd edition. This episode is dedicated to computer science. Science has been in a lot of demand among the engineering aspirants, so we thought, why not create one episode that talks about what all are you going to study when you are in BITS Pilani Dubai campus if you've taken computer science. If you've not taken computer science, but you want to do certain electives, which are the electives in offer and what are the future prospects for computer science, what kind of jobs you can get, what kind of master's program you can go for, and if you want to start your company, what you need to do while you're on campus. And then there is a little bit of advice that we're going to take from our panelists for the engineering aspirants so that they can figure out whether they're going to like computer science or not. So let me introduce my panelists for today. We have Dr. Sujala Shetty. She's the Associate Professor of Department of Computer Science at BITS Pilani Dubai campus. Then we have Parv and Saugat, who are with PwC in the Middle East. And we have Miral, who's with Amazon. All right, welcome everyone. All right, so before we start our session on what all you can do on campus, let's demystify the terms related to computer science. So there are a lot of jargons that you might be hearing related to computer science, and today our panelists are going to demystify them for you. All right, let's start with the first word. Miral, what is algorithm?
Algorithms are like a set of steps, or it's a process that you write or you code to solve a particular problem. So it's basically the crux of your coding, which has a logic, and you write it step by step.
Learn about it. Great. Yeah. Machine learning. So Saugat, what is machine learning?
So machine learning is a branch of artificial intelligence and computer science, which tends to focus on using data structures and algorithms to imitate the way how humans learn. And you use different sorts of tools for that. You use scikit-learn, PyTorch, TensorFlow, Keras. So yeah, that's machine learning.
Interesting. All right. The second one is cybersecurity. Again, Saugat, what is cybersecurity?
Cybersecurity basically it's more of a practice which defends computers or routers or mobile devices, any sort of electronic system really, and protects it from malicious attacks or any hackers out there.
Right. So what do these hackers actually attack? The data?
What they try to do is find the most vulnerable part in your system, and they want to extract as much information about your system. And mainly they're after your usernames or passwords or personal private information that they want to gather and then sell it over the dark web, for example.
And what would normally a cybersecurity guy do to avoid these attacks?
They work with, so a cybersecurity engineer works, first of all, they would need a solid technical knowledge of networking in general, which is also a course taught in college in the third year. So after you know what packets are, you use tools like Wireshark to sniff out packets. You build antivirus tools. You get into field, if you're of a hacker mentality, you get into white hat hacking. So all of these skills are required so that you try your best to make sure that a situation like this never comes across again.
All right. Okay. The next one is data science. So Dr. Sujala, what is data science?
Yeah, so data science is basically like, you're using a lot of maths, you're using statistics, you're using, say, concepts like data mining, and we come up with, say maybe mathematical models to give kind of predictions and tell you, like, say, even now during the COVID time, right, how is it going to be, like, how is it that people are saying that there is going to be a third wave? Right. So that is because, they've come up with solid models and they can come up with, good forecasts and predictions.
Right. Like they say, data never lies. And hence we study data to predict the future. All right.
Right.
Okay. The next one is bioinformatics. What is it, Saugat?
So this is something that I'm delving into lately, which is it develops methods and software tools to understand biological data using statistics and computer science. So statistics is also a major component in this, which is usually overlooked. But it makes sense of the entire genome of the body. So how DNA gets transcribed into RNA and then using mRNA which makes proteins. Right. So you make sense of this data and how a DNA affects your phenotypes or your looks basically. So you use different tools for that as well. Galaxy is the one that.
This sounds more of biology. Where is computer science in this?
So this is at the intersection of biology, computer science, and statistics, where when you have the entire genome, which comes from the biology, but then to make sense of it, this is where you use machine learning, for example, to see what the different bases are, the ACGTs, and then you make sure then you understand which particular base or nucleotide is being used as a phenotype. What defines your eye colors? What defines your hair colors? So making sense of a vast amount of data. So that's
algorithms where computer science would come into this.
Yeah, especially deep learning and the machine learning part of it.
Interesting. Okay. Then comes IoT. What is IoT, Internet of Things?
So yeah, IoT is basically how different physical objects, like different devices, are connected with each other through the sensors in them. So how do they communicate basically? So you can take the example of a smart home. So like when we enter a room, the lights automatically turn on, and when we go, the lights automatically turn off. So this is like one of the field which IoT can be used for.
Right. So isn't this more of electronics? Where is computer science in this?
So how to detect a particular person is entering a room or like leaving the room. Right. So this is where the algorithm for the computer science will run.
Correct. So the electronics would majorly be about sensor, the precision of how good it senses. But whatever it has sensed, the data, that crunching has to go into computer science. Right. Interesting.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And next is blockchain. This is a term that has become very famous lately. Blockchain. What is it, Saugat?
Yeah. Okay. So I did my thesis in this as well. So I think I'll be right to answer this. It's a system of recording information basically, which makes it difficult or virtually impossible for anybody to come and change or hack or cheat the system. So you've heard all the jargon terms all around Bitcoin, Ethereum. These are all assets that are built on top of the underlying technology that is blockchain. So this is where you need strong knowledge of data structures and algorithms, which is also a course taught in the college. Okay. And along with that, you need a strong knowledge of networking and cryptography, which is where in masters you're taught more about cryptography. So blockchain is also an amalgamation of multiple different industries sort of coming together and converging to form blockchain.
So encryption has always existed, right, in the world. So what is so different about blockchain?
If somebody says blockchain is a chain of blocks, that's not really an incorrect definition anyways. So what you're trying to do is you encrypt you put a block around all the transactions and then sort of put a chain and attach it to the next block and to the next block and to the next block. So it forms a full chain of all the blocks of all the transactions. Right. And thanks to, for example, SHA-256 or such other technologies, the moment somebody tries to make a change, it immediately sends a notification that somebody is trying to alter something in this particular location.
Okay.
And it gives a notification to everybody in the
interesting. So blockchain is what has become very popular nowadays. Next is artificial intelligence. Now that's been a buzzword for very long. Dr. Sujala, you're an expert in artificial intelligence. What is it?
Yeah, so artificial intelligence, basically if you define it, it's something like which human beings are already doing very automatically. Like you see somebody, you recognize them. You touch something, you can sense it. Language you can understand. So, these are things that human beings, we've been doing it very easily. Right. But then in order to get a machine to kind of simulate our human brain is something that is very complex. But now because we have so much of data to train our machines, we have very high processing systems. Right. Artificial intelligence is really catching up with many things that people do. Playing games, right. Reasoning things. Right. So all these are things that where AI is really coming.
Right. Yeah, I think primitively what computers used to do was store the information and give it back to you whenever it was needed. But now those times are gone, and now it's more about crunching the data, making decisions which otherwise humans would have made. And further onto it, there
making your system more intelligent.
Correct. Right.
Basically, yeah.
And further to that is deep learning, which has become a term nowadays very, very important in many gadgets and many softwares which would come in. So Parv, what is deep learning?
So deep learning is based on the human brain. So when we see something or when we listen to something, our human brain remembers everything. So deep learning is based on a similar concept. It's based on a neural network in which once you feed in some data to the system, it will remember the next time the same data comes in. So you can take, like, you can understand from the applications of it, like it's used in the voice recognition system or in the face detection system. So like all your mobile phones, like the Siri application or the OK Google thing, all of them are using this thing, like deep learning to recognize your voice and all.
Right. I think your mobile phone just detected your OK.
Yes.
Okay. And data analytics. So of course, the name is very, very self-explanatory, data analytics. But what does a computer science guy or a girl would do in data analytics?
Okay, so data analytics is, as it goes by the name, like how to analyze the data. So a computer science, like a boy, like someone from a computer science field can run some algorithms to predict what will happen in the future with the similar data. So suppose suppose like what will be, like the data of a company, like how it has been progressing. So now you can use your data analytics tool, like the different programming languages like Python and R, like you can use Python and R for it. And it will be like once you write your algorithms in Python and R, like they will be useful for you to predict the data of that particular company, like for which you are using the data analytics for.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Okay. The next one is app developer. So Saugat. So of course, everybody uses an app and there are developers for it. So can you just demystify this app development? What does a computer science engineer actually do in app development?
Yeah. So app development in general does not really need a definition here. All the apps in your phone are built using app or web development. Facebook, Instagram, even the call that we're having right now is built is an application here. So a regular developer, you actually need, even if you come to college without any knowledge of this, the initial courses tell you about data structures and algorithms, which is sort of the root of everything in computer science. So that's one of the most important topics.
Right.
To learn. So you have that knowledge with you in the first place, and then you learn different programming languages depending on what do you want to target. For example, you want to target just the iOS devices, you learn, for example, Swift. If you want to just target Android devices, you learn Java or Kotlin. You want to target both the devices, that's where you learn Flutter or JavaScript. So it really caters to everything. You want to make games, you use Unity. So it depends on where you want to go and learn those skill sets.
Right. So when you're an app developer, you could either be a developer, right? Or you could be a full stack developer. So what are these terms like?
Okay, so there's three terms which are most popular right now, which is a full stack developer, a front end developer, and a back end developer. A person who knows both front end and back end developing is known as a full stack developer.
Right.
So front end developer is the person who deals with front end technologies or what you see on your screen right now. So everything that's made pretty or what should be shown on the screen is the job of a front end developer. You need skills like, you mainly need JavaScript or TypeScript to be a front end developer. You use tools on top of that like Angular or React, whatnot.
Right.
A back end developer, I'm more into the back end category, which is how to store the data and what to retrieve and build APIs to retrieve the data from the database. So you use tools like Python or Django framework primarily, or Spring Boot or Node.js. Right. These tools are you create APIs using these. So you talk to the database and then send this information to the front end so that the front end engineer knows how to display that information. And a person who can do everything is a full stack.
Full stack developer, right? Next one is game development. So I think anyway, Saugat mentioned about developer, but what is game developer profile like?
Yeah, so as Saugat already mentioned, like a game development is again like it's a combination of different people in a team. So I can divide the team into a designer who basically is a non-technical person who will design how the levels of the games are designed, how the structure of the game will be. He's a designer. And then there's the artist who will decide how will the video display of the game look like what will happen when we click on a particular button or what, like, these kind of things, which is basically done in HTML, JavaScript. Like this is the front-end technology which Saugat was talking about. And then comes a programmer who decides what will actually happen on a click of something, on touch of something. Right. So which is again a backend technology which is handled in Python or some other programming language, any backend programming language like C#, Java. And then comes a sound engineer who decides how the sounds of the game will look like.
Right. Interesting. Okay, so that's all that goes into game development. Then comes compiler. So the compiler is a term which has been there forever now in computer science. So Dr. Sunyala, what is a compiler?
Yeah, so compilers are going to be very important. Like, see, any programming language that you have, we must have a syntax to the language so that, everybody, there is a uniformity.
Yeah.
Like when we have English, we know that, there are certain rules of the language. So the same thing happens in a programming language also. Like you have a very strict syntax, which will tell what is right, like a sentence ends with a semicolon. So different languages would have different requirements. So the compiler is basically going to be such that, any program that is given, it'll have to check for the syntax of the language.
Right.
So anything that doesn't follow the syntax, it'll have to tell you there's an error here. So, compilers become very important in computer science because, so many new languages keep coming up.
Right.
So you will have to have people who are actually developing these languages who also have the supporting compiler for it.
Right.
Many times, Lohit, like you have our, say, mobile phones and all that, which also do quite a lot of processing. So they even have to look at, coming up with lightweight compilers.
Okay. Right. Absolutely correct. And a lot of hardware devices would be required. While actually the computer science engineer is going to put the codes, a lot of hardware is there to process all those codes, right? So what are these GPUs? What are these hardware devices which a computer science engineer can choose to get into?
Yeah, so this is also something, that is very, very significant nowadays. Like if you're looking at, say, ML that is developing so quickly, we're looking at our game development, which is progressing so fast. We're looking at all these cloud technologies, because now during the pandemic, we've seen so many people have moved on to the cloud. But what happens on the cloud, it has to have the infrastructure which can support all this. So you must have proper memory systems which can store your data. You must be able to process the data very quickly. Right. So when we're looking at this processing, even from an engineering point of view, we do introduce students to hardware courses also. Like you would have logic where they start studying basics, like say transistors, small devices. Then you do microprocessors. You're looking at bigger processing systems.
Right.
But as we go ahead, like now in our deep learning and machine learning and all that, CPU may not be enough. So you have a lot of your graphics processing. So graphics was initially actually NVIDIA is like one of the pioneers.
Correct.
So there they actually came up for game development. But now you see a lot of our ML applications, there is so much of computation. So there's a lot of multiplications that happen. So all this happens on GPUs. So that has now become a completely huge industry. Like if you look at NVIDIA and all that, I mean, because of the gaming industry, because of music industry, because of these deep learning applications. So CPUs, GPUs and all that, something that's very, very significant now.
So isn't that a electronics domain? So what does a computer science engineer they would do in these devices?
That's a lot of these courses, you would have to look at, again, optimization of your code. So you have to look at building, code which is going to be very, very efficient on these systems. Because everywhere we look at a lot of heat being generated and things like that. So that is where a lot of programming and those concepts come in. Right. So we do have our computer science engineers who play a very important role here.
So that's a cross between electronics and computer science. Now there's a cross between mechanical and computer science where mechatronics, drone, robotics would come into picture. So Parth, what are these domains like?
Yeah, so again, like a robotics is a combination. It's an interdisciplinary thing, which is a combination of a mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, and a computer science engineer. So what a mechanical engineer will do is he will come in, he will design the machine, like how it should look like and all. Then an electrical engineer will come in, like he will consult the mechanical engineer. He will put all the wires over there, put all the sensors over there. Like how would they fit in that compact design? And then comes a computer engineer who will decide like what should a particular sensor, how should a particular sensor should work, and what should happen when a robot moves ahead or something.
Right.
So very good example of this technology is drones, which I think all of you can see, and home cleaning, nowadays robots are coming to clean the homes. So yeah.
Correct. Right. Interesting. Okay. Then there is cloud computing. So cloud computing has become a very, very major thing now. Most of the processing that happens now is on cloud. So Saugata, what is cloud computing?
Okay, so cloud computing, essentially it's more of a suite of services which cloud platforms give you. For example, servers, storage, databases, networking, analytics, intelligence. But in basic sense, let's say, for example, you have a startup tomorrow and it immediately flies and it takes off really well. But you have all of these devices in hand. For example, you have servers in your house or in your office. But now the audience has increased twice or 3 times. You need to scale those very quickly, very fast, so that none of your users face any downtime. So that's where cloud really came in. So what it does is you can horizontally or vertically scale your servers or your storage platforms or your databases with just a click of your button. And so let's say your platform even has a growth of 10 times the user base, it immediately scales it. So technologies like AWS, the Amazon Web Services, or Google Cloud Platform, the GCP, or Microsoft's Azure platform, all of these are tools that one has to have in their pockets to quickly scale their projects very efficiently and move your infrastructure and cater to your business needs.
Right. So instead of having a hard disk on your, in your house or in your office, now you have a server, somewhere else. But where does a computer science engineer come into picture here? So it sounds very simple that you upload everything there and then it processes and gives you the final information here. But so what does a computer science engineer do in this?
So you can see two sides of the coins here. One, the people who are working in cloud computing, or the ones who have a startup and who want to get in touch with these tools and how to make sense of it. For a cloud engineer, they have to make sure how they are storing the information. Are they storing it in a list format or in a hash set or a map format, just to make sure that the information retrieval is the fastest. Correct. And the write speeds are also the fastest. So for example, Instagram, you barely see a downtime there. You post millions of people post a picture every second and it immediately uploads it, and you can immediately refresh your feed and can see it. So that's where the beauty of cloud computing comes in. Whereas a developer whose startup is on the cloud has to make sure how they're storing the information. So the user's information has to be stored in a separate way where passwords are encrypted. The images are supposed to be stored in a buckets, for example. So the retrieval is the easiest, or the uploading process is the easiest. So that's where the two sides come in. You have to know how to store the data, and an engineer needs to know what is the best way to store the information.
Very interesting, and very practical also. Next is network. So network is also a very major domain in computer science. So once a student enrolls in computer science, network is a major part that they're going to study. So what is network about, Dr. Sujala?
Yeah, so networks is going to be like, something that is very, very fundamental now for us, because it could be an office setup where we're seeing that, you have 50 or 100 systems which are connected. It could be in a locality where all of us are connected to the internet. So it could be anything. So we are looking at even in terms of satellite communication. So because now we see that even our entertainment mainly happens through, say, satellite TV, where we're looking at, accessing different platforms. Right. So all of this, because you're talking about data which has to be interconnected. Right. And so there is, you have things like the physical layer where the actual connection happens. We're looking at how we're forming packets out of the data, how it is being transmitted, how it is going to be reassembled. And then on top of all this, you have all these applications. It could be our protocols. So it could be something like, like your mail protocol. It could be something like how you're going to be accessing different applications. Right. So this entire stack of things becomes what we call our computer networks.
Correct. Interesting. Very nice. Then there's this new domain that has picked up a lot right now, though it has been available, I think, for past decade. But now it has really picked up, which is augmented reality, AR, VR, XR, extended reality, right? So Sagar, I can see some of the devices behind you also. What are these AR, VR, XR?
AR, VR. So AR is augmented reality, which sort of augments your real world, and it uses a real world setting, while a virtual reality is completely virtual. Or you can say like AR users control the presence in the real world. So you're touching things or something augmented on top of it, versus our virtual users are controlled by the system. So augmented reality, for example, if you've seen Google Glass, so that's where you can see the real world, but it's augmenting things. So you can see the arrows that is pointing out. Even right now, you can see it on your Google Maps app. You put it up and you're in the walking mode, and it shows you which directions to go to. So now Google Glass is.
It's on cars also now, right? So when you drive, it projects it on the screen. Yeah.
On the dashboard, and then there's a measurement app on your iPhone, which measures the distance between two things. So that's a very good common example of augmented reality and HoloLens devices, for example, by Microsoft. Virtual reality is more geared towards games right now. So there are movies which are built on explaining the topic of virtual reality as well. Devices you can use is like Oculus Rift or Oculus Quest or HTC Vive. So you just put the headset on, like you see behind me. You put the headset on, and you're sort of immersed in that world.
Okay. So that sounds very complicated also, because when you put the headset on, it has a lot of mechanical engineering in it, then a lot of electronics in it, then a lot of computer science in it. So let me ask you, since this is about computer science today, what does a computer science engineer? What are the prospects for a computer science engineer in this field?
So a computer science engineer does not necessarily deal with only the software part of it. They also have to deal with the hardware aspect of it. For example, the IoT devices that we talked about before, you need to make sure the hardware talks to the software in a neat fashion. So this is where the headsets also come in. You wear it, and it sort of aligns where you are, makes sure where your eyes are, where you're looking at what moment. And then it immediately has to feed that information to the software. For example, you're building an application which does the eye tracking. It has to know where the eyes are pointing at right now. And so you can immediately pick up a device and then put it in a cart, or then drag and drop certain sliders or something.
Right.
So that's where the software and hardware aspect comes in. You need both of them to talk to each other.
Very interesting. All right. Something else has really come up now, which is called 3D printing. So, Parv, what is 3D printing, and what does a computer science engineer do in 3D printing?
Yeah, so 3D printing is basically the construction of the three-dimensional object, and it's constructed from a CAD model, which is the model which is developed by a computer science student generally. And what we do is we feed a CAD model to a 3D printing machine, and it uses a particular materials to print the CAD model, and as it is, the model comes out. And again, the applications of it are immense. It can be used. It's currently picking up in the fashion industry also. So that's one of the areas. And also even in Dubai, I've seen a place in which they're 3D printing a completely a house from 3D printer. So that's one of the most amazing thing which I saw.
Right. And also, since it's a very new technology, I mean, it has existed for some time now, but the usage is relatively very new. So I think it has a lot of scope for every kind of engineer now to innovate and create new stuff. Right. Okay. And fintech. So a lot of unicorn and a lot of companies, a lot of startups that have become unicorn this year have been fintech startups, right? And most of these guys have a background in computer science engineering. So what is fintech, and what is the scope for computer science engineer in fintech? Parv?
Yeah, so as it goes by the name, fintech is a combination of financial technology plus the computer science industry plus the technology. So a fintech industry uses the financial data and applies technology on it to improve the financial data. If you go in the big data, it can be used to predict the investment strategies of big companies. So how they can manipulate the strategies, how they can change their portfolio, so to have a better gain in the future.
Correct. Interesting. Okay. And finally, there's this term which has been quite a jargon for everybody, which is natural language processing, NLP. So Dr. Sujala, what is NLP?
Yeah. So now, see language, because what happens is now we've become a more interconnected world. So you have people traveling to different parts of the world. Language is always going to be a problem. Say now we have our sports people who are in Tokyo, but communicating in Japanese may be really impossible. So you have a lot of these natural language processing tools which have come in. Suppose you're using a taxi, say in Tokyo or in Moscow. You've gone from India, so you can't communicate with them. So we have a lot of systems now where maybe you could text. So you're contacting the Uber driver. You would be typing in English. It gets converted to his native language. He'll respond in his native language, and it's communicated back to you. Right. So this could be one of the application. You're looking at a lot of our voice chat bots, voice bots. Right. So you call up a bank nowadays. It's very, very unusual that you might directly encounter a human being. Most probably it's a chat bot. Right. So you talk to them, and they're able to understand the language, because language is basically very, very complex. Correct. You could have a lot of sentiment which comes in. There could be a lot of terms which could have different meanings.
Right.
So things like this. So now we have systems which can actually understand.
Hmm.
So, and even if you're looking at, like now there's a lot of work which is going on in this. Like if in case you're looking at a picture, how do you convert this into a sentence? So,
Right.
you have systems which do this.
Right.
You have systems now which come up with stories.
Right.
That is because they're able to understand language. You have music genres, and you just specify a genre, the entire lyrics can be generated.
Correct.
So there is a lot of work that is actually going on in this field of NLP, and maybe even like you're looking at, say, picture. They even kind of have work where they're looking at bias that comes in. So you're looking at a man in a white coat, it might say that he's a doctor. It looks at a lady in a white coat, it might label it as a nurse. So these kind of a lot of intricate work that is going on in this particular field. So it is a very interesting area for students to actually think of working in for the future.
Interesting. So as a computer science engineer, one could either use the NLP tools which are already there and create a product out of it, or create new NLP tools itself.
Or develop something. Yeah, develop something themselves.
Interesting. So these were some of the jargons that I could think of, and now that we have demystified it, let's go to our next segment where we talk about how do you pick up skills while you are at BITS Pilani Dovai campus related to computer science. All right. So coming to Dr. Sujala. Dr. Sujala, what are the courses which students would have to do if they're choosing computer science?
We have a very good mix of, core courses, as well as there are lots of electives. Right. So core courses start off actually from the first year, your second year and third year. And in your final year, you're doing only elective courses. And from your second year, you start picking and choosing electives.
Right.
So, there are certain students who would like to pass out with more of a flavor of, say, finance or, say, management or marketing. So there are lots of finance-based or management-based courses that they do. But there are quite a few students who are, very hardcore into tech. Right. So they, very clear that maybe they want to pass out with a data science or a minor in data science. So then they pick up those courses. Again, there are some students who, have a very strong inclination to maths. So you could be a computer science engineer where you've done a lot of courses in, say, probability, statistics, and other mathematical courses. So it's a very healthy mix of these courses. And another important thing that we have is you have projects. So you start with projects right from your second year. So your second year, you can do projects in the first and second semester. Third year, again, first and second, and one semester of your final year. So again, projects is somewhere where, students actually sit down and a particular technology, maybe with a little bit of guidance from the faculty, but they learn and they actually get into doing something, some hands-on work. Right. So that is also a very important aspect that they have over there.
Can you name some of the courses which the students do in computer science?
Yeah, so the first year is generally going to be common to all students. So, the first year is where they do, like most of the courses that many of them would have done in their 11th and 12th, they go into a little bit more detail. Right. So it could be maths, it could be your engineering drawing, which you do, and it's introduction into many of your your engineering courses. Second year, like I told you, there are some core courses that they have to do. So, we give a mix of both hardware-based courses as well as software-based courses.
Right.
So in the second year, they get introduced to courses like, digital design, microprocessors, which are more into like the hardware part. Coming to the software, they do courses like, you have object-oriented programming, which is important because Python is also based on that. Java is also based on that. So object-oriented concepts that they learn, data structures they learn, they would be learning these would be like, courses that you would learn in the second year. In the third year, again, you learn a little bit more advanced courses. Okay. So it could be compilers, operating systems, networks. And again, you have a big load of electives. So in terms of more of hardware, they get into something called computer architecture. So again, they learn a little bit more in detail over there. Right. And then again, since algorithms are important, in the third year, again, you learn more of, detailed algorithms. So there's the design and analysis of algorithms. Okay. And then your final year becomes very flexible because one semester completely you do either your PS or your thesis. Right. PS if you're interested in working, thesis if you're interested in research, and another semester it's purely electives. Right. So students pick and choose their electives.
Okay. And Dr. Sujala,
coming to these courses, I mean, we have a structure like where you have 14 core courses. There are 4 discipline electives that a student has to take. There are 5 open electives. So like I told you, management, math, based courses, these become their open electives, and then you have humanities electives also, because we assume that when a student passes out, some basic knowledge about humanities is also needed. Could be English, could be communication, psychology, whatever.
Right.
So that is the broad structure.
And Dr. Sujala, which are the minor programs which are available with BPDC
Yes.
relating to computer science?
Yeah, so now we do have a minor in data science.
Okay.
So for the minor in data science, the student pass out in the same 4 years, but there is a prerequisite that, they have to finish some 5 courses. Out of these 5 courses, again, there is a flexibility in terms of only 3 of these courses are compulsory.
Okay.
So there, one of them is machine learning, one is foundations of data science, and other is a statistical course. And then in addition to that, there is a big array of electives. Out of that entire array of electives, they have to pick and choose and finish 2 of the necessary electives.
Nice.
So once they've finished with this, they pass out with a BE in computer science and a minor in data science.
So these are the courses that you have while you're doing computer science, and that is the minor that you got to know about. So we have a short video that explains the flexible program structure in BPDC. So here's the video.
BITS Pilani has the semester system with continuous evaluation. The programs are modular and flexible. In their 7 semesters on campus, students create their unique profile with a combination of compulsory and optional courses. Students start with foundation courses in their first year and move to discipline core courses and dive deeper in their streams. They choose discipline electives, open electives, and humanity electives to create a niche interdisciplinary profile. BITS Pilani's unique internship program called Practice School, popularly known as PS program, structures the industry exposure like a course. Apart from the faculty from BITS Pilani, a mentor from the company guides and evaluates students as they explore the workings in the corporate. Students get a short exposure of 2 months in a company in their PS1 after second year. In their final year, students go for PS2, where students work on a 6-month-long project with a company. PS2 also gives a chance to secure pre-placement offer from the companies for students. Apart from PS, students can opt for thesis program if they choose to get into research. What makes the program at BITS Pilani truly modular and flexible is that, apart from the compulsory courses, the students can choose to take up a minimum of 12 elective courses of their choice and plan the same from second year onwards. They also have the flexibility to select the courses in each semester, choose the faculty, and make their own timetable as per the plan, thereby having an option of completing their degree earlier than 8 semesters also. With the option of transfer, students can opt for changing their stream after the first year based on their GPA. With dual degree program, students can receive 2 engineering degrees by investing at least 1 more year. For example, a student who has been allotted mechanical engineering can choose to opt for a dual degree with computer science. In this case, the student will invest 5 to 5.5 years in total and will graduate with an engineering degree in both mechanical engineering and computer science engineering. BITS Pilani's world-class curriculum is designed to keep the students ahead of their peers and to get them ready for high-level positions in the corporate world. To know more about our curriculum, refer to the prospectus. To start your application for BITS Pilani Dubai campus, log on to admission.bits-dubai.ac.ae.
Okay, Dr. Sujala, so which are the electives? Now we saw that there's a very flexible program structure, but which are the specific electives which are very popular among computer science graduates?
Yeah, so, even the offering of electives, it's something that is constantly revised. So we keep having a team which monitors the requirements of students across all 4 campuses. So off late also, we've had a current revision and a big array of electives were actually approved by the Senate. So currently the courses that we offer here are going to be, say, machine learning, we have deep learning, we have artificial intelligence, IoT is offered.
Wow.
And then in addition to this, we also have courses like NLP. You have data science that is offered, data mining, which is there.
Oh,
So, these are some of the popular electives that we do. And in addition, there's web services,
okay.
there is information retrieval, cryptography is another important elective.
Okay.
So there is
That's
a good
amazing.
choice given to students so that
Yeah.
they can pick and choose depending on their interests.
So most of these electives that you named right now are in fact the cutting edge, new age streams. So which is very good.
Right.
You're already teaching that in your curriculum. All right. All right, Meeral, coming to you, which courses left an impact on you? Which are the courses that you did?
So in BITS, there were a lot of amazing core courses that I did: data analysis of algorithms, computer architecture, networking courses. They really helped me. But along with that, there were a lot of electives that BITS offers, which was very good. It was there are a lot of courses that I did on management, human resources, entrepreneurship, cryptography, cloud computing. So these courses gave me an insight as to what field of computer science I'm interested in and where I could develop my skills more.
Going to Swagat. Swagat, which electives did you take while you were on campus? And is there any story around it? Why did you choose those electives?
Yeah, there were a couple of discipline electives that I took, which were all important. So all of the courses in general in BPTC, when I look back now, when I have a little bit of industry experience, all of them seem very, very useful now that I'm actually applying those. Starting from the second year itself, like object-oriented programming, when you use Java, for example, that's where you needed digital design or data structures algorithms or compiler constructions or computer networks. All of these courses, you somehow get a taste of each one of them whenever you're working in any setting. Right. Computer networks, you're dealing with routers or the networks or the DNS settings. Right. And programming, of course, is on a daily basis for me at least. One of the electives I took was not really the one for bachelor students, but more for the masters, which was network security, which deals with which was cryptography related. So that is something that I wanted to do. Going into it, I knew it was going to be very difficult and I might not score as well and my GPA might drop, but regardless, I wanted to do this because this was something I was passionate about at that time. And I did take that. So all of the students there were few students who were from bachelor's, but it was a master's related course. So you see the flexibility here where if a person is interested in something, they can go ahead and opt for something which is not even meant for bachelor's students.
Right.
Yeah.
What about you? Yeah. Go ahead, Swagat. You saying something?
No, this is something this really helped because I wanted to learn cryptography because I was interested in blockchain technology, and cryptography is a core pillar of blockchain technology, and that is actually one of the main reasons why I landed my first job in the first place.
Very nice. What about you, Parv? Which electives did you take? Story around.
So I wanted to try different kind of things, as all of these technologies which Dr. Sujala talked about are emerging right now. So I wanted to try all of them. So I tried different things. I tried machine learning, I tried data mining, and then I tried artificial intelligence, and then I tried service-oriented computing, which is one of the best electives I took. It's based on how different kind of web services work. So now when I look back at it, when I program right now, I understand what will happen in the back end. When I read a particular code, how will it function in the backend? So that helped me understand those courses. And apart from these technical courses, I also took some courses which helped me to increase the presentation skills, like linguistics and all, which are needed in the current world. So that was important.
Right. Interesting. Okay. So apart from the courses and electives, one major way to pick up skills is your technical clubs, which are there at BPTC. So Dr. Sujala, which are the technical clubs for computer science students on, at BPTC?
So in our computer science department, we basically have 3 clubs. One of them is ACM, that is the Association for Computing Machinery. We have a Microsoft Tech Club, and then there is also a Linux users group. So these are the 3 clubs from computer science. But I think as the students were saying before, this need not be that the only clubs that are there. So there is I4, then there are clubs which are involved with management courses, entrepreneurial courses. So there are different clubs which students based on their interests could be joining.
Interesting.
But we've generally seen that these clubs become very instrumental for students' development, because a lot of them, these courses or workshops that they run are student driven.
Correct.
So it gives them that, that ability where they're able to kind of plan things out. They learn how they could communicate as groups, how you're able to manage resources. It could be in terms of finances, it could be in different things. So clubs become a very instrumental part, I feel, in the overall development of students.
Right. So Agat, which clubs were you part of?
I was part of a wide array of clubs. Really, means going from photography club to design clubs. But I was also part of Microsoft Tech Club, for example. I was part of IOTA, which is a student-run robotics team, and comprises of multidisciplinary students in the campus who are building drones. So this was also something that I was interested in, and I worked as a programmer where I focused on like computer vision or path planning or control systems, which then leads you into talking with the industry of the tycoons here. So because of IOTA, I was introduced to a competition. It's called UAE Drones for Good, and we participated in it twice, and we were in the top 10 both these times.
Okay.
In UAE. So this gives a very, very good introduction to going out and seeing what others are developing and then presenting in front of them as well.
Right. What about you, Parv? Which clubs were you a part of?
So I was part of the Microsoft Tech Club as well, and I was the part of I4 Club. I was the lead of the club in my 4th year, and so like the club
What is I4 Club?
Yeah, it's International Flying Robotics Club, in which Intelligent Flying Robotics Club, and which means like we were building some drones or some robotic kind of things, and through that club we participated in different competitions. Like we went for the IARC, which is International Air Robotics Competition. It's a world-renowned competition. And then even in Dubai, we went for a drones forward competition, which Saugata was talking about. And we even went for like a DFA challenge, which is like a future accelerator challenge in Dubai, in which we even got selected, and we got a contract from Dubai municipality to build a robot for them. So that was one great achievement. And yeah.
Brilliant. That's really good. So great. So the ways to pick up skills on campuses, you take up courses, of course. There are courses, there are minor programs, you can pick up that. Then there are electives where you can take up electives from computer science and also mix it up with other disciplines also. And then there are tech clubs and other clubs also where whatever you've learned in your classes, you get to apply, you get to create, and you get to develop on it. All right. Coming to our next segment, which is opportunities to grow in computer science while you are at BITS Pilani Dubai campus. So, all right, coming to Dr. Sujala, which are the kind of opportunities? So, coming to practice school and thesis program, right? Where the students actually go work in a company outside or pick up research while they're on campus or collaborate with another university. So, which are the popular practice school, companies that takes computer science students?
Yeah. So that's what coming to this practice school and both the thesis option. These are I think very good platforms which kind of prepare the student for the outside world. So right in your second year, students do their 2 months of summer they spend in their practice school 1. So that is basically need not be associated with their specialization, but it is just to give them an industry exposure. So it could be students placed in any organization. But in their final year, because it's a complete 6 months that they're working in a particular company. So I think both Saugat and Parv, both of them, Parv, I think he did his internship in PwC. So that is also one very important thing that we see, that students actually work in a company. So it becomes like a point where companies have already invested in students. So they've completely finished their, the training period there. So even this time we've seen quite a few of our students. In fact, one of our students is picked up by ESRI, because that is also a very good American company where they deal with all this GIS systems, geographic information systems used in mapping.
Okay.
So we have, these companies, so they kind of invest their time, train the students. The 6 months is going to be a very good opportunity where they could finally be placed.
Right.
So we've generally been seeing PwC is a very popular company. ESRI is there. We've been seeing MSD is there. That is Merck Sharp and Dome.
Okay.
Johnson Controls is there. We have L&T, Emerson. So there are quite a few companies, and many of them, in fact, recruit these students. So right, maybe in the first semester of your final year or in the second semester, you've already landed a job. So that is something that is very, very attractive nowadays.
Right.
And another important thing is even your thesis. So I think Saugat, he did his thesis. So if in case you're more research focused, you've decided you want to go in for your master's or maybe to pursue a PhD, so that thesis becomes an important option. So either students work with faculty on campus, but in some cases, if they're interested in an area where, somewhere else there is more work going on, say quantum computing or some other area, you have students who even go there. In fact, there's a very interesting case. We have one of our students, Mihir. He's also from Mumbai. So he had gone to CMU. He was able to connect with the faculty from CMU and he worked there and she was really happy with his work. So he extended there for a year further, worked with her. They've come up with very good publications in very good conferences. And then after that, she's even offered him a PhD post.
Wow.
So he's actually saved on, that 2 years of his master's that he would have spent on. So now straight away he's going in for a PhD program. He's joining this September in CMU, and he's also going to be visiting Stanford as a visiting research assistant. So these are different options that we see students could pick up.
Very nice. I love the flexibility that BITS Pilani provides to its students. All right, so Parv, you use the PS program very well. So you interned at PwC and now you're working with PwC. How was the experience like?
It was a nice experience. So basically PwC came to a campus for the interviews and all. So there are two rounds of interviews for PwC. So the first round is more of a CV based, in which they ask questions based on your CV, like what all you did what kind of projects you did, what clubs you were in, these kind of questions. Then the second round is a bit of more of technical, in which they give you a certain task, like to develop a particular website or a web page, and you have to develop a web page, and like they analyze how you did it, and then they'll hire you for the internship. And even after the internship, like they'll assign you good roles, like different projects to work on. So like you are actually a part of an actual project which they're working on. So like you can apply your knowledge to those projects.
All right, Meeral, you have very interesting stories about practice school. So how was your PS2 experience like in your final year?
PS2. I completed my PS2 in Emerson Automation and Solutions. I was a software developer intern, and in fact, I was the only one. Everybody around me was electrical at that point of time. There were a few projects that I worked on. I developed a few web portals and intranets for internal employees to work on. I also created some sales dashboards. Apart from this, I worked on task tracking software, which will track different orders, what task you're doing, even predict your deliverables. It was a great experience because I learned how to work in a corporate environment. I think BITS gives that advantage to students where they just don't give you the classroom knowledge, but they also give you this corporate environment knowledge. They give you an exposure to develop your core skills, but also your soft skills. I learned firsthand how to design, develop and deploy a project from start to end. I also had a few analysis that I did after the softwares were built as to how the customers or the employees are, how do they find it helpful, or where are the other areas of development. So I feel that this is something that is needed before you go out and start your job, because it gives you a little edge and a little confidence as to what you want to do. And be it like, presentation skills or writing an email or report, all of this is eventually going to help you in your life, like for your career. So.
Right. And you did all this in 6-month internship.
Yes.
I think that's beautiful about the PS program, the practice school program, that apart from a regular internship, whatever you get in a regular internship here, there is a supervisor from the company and from BITS Pilani. And it's a structured internship program, which is very, very interesting because before you actually get out to the corporate world, this one trains you.
Yes.
Brilliant. Interesting. So Agat, you did your thesis. So what made you choose thesis and what was your thesis on?
So I decided early on, I guess, that I wanted to do thesis. This was just a decision that I wanted to go into a little bit of research before my job experience really starts. I did my thesis on leveraging blockchain for identity management in recruitment sector. So this is what propelled me into the job as well.
Right.
But it wasn't really that I just focused on my thesis and did not do any industry experience. I also did my internship at one of the cybersecurity firms here in Dubai. at the same time. So yeah, I technically did both the internship and the thesis, but
Right.
officially through college, I just did my thesis there.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So apart from PS and TS programs, there are multiple competitions for computer science engineers, computer science students at BITS Pilani Dubai campus, where they can actually showcase their skills, win prizes, win recognitions, which then can be very helpful in securing a good job or securing a good master's program, right? So what about you guys? Can you name some of the competitions that either you've been to or your friends have been to, and some stories there?
Okay, I'll go first then. Being in computer science, there's lots of hackathons going around in Dubai or elsewhere. Hackathons are coding competitions where you work overnight, 24, 36, 48 hours continuously. You program throughout the night, and then you come up with the solution which the competition requires you to. And so, being in college, so these companies or these institutions reach out to the top universities, and of course, BITS was one of them, and they ask students to build a solution in their campuses. And so you work overnight and you come up with a solution and build a team either through networking, or you have a team, you form a team inside the BITS as well.
Correct.
So being in college and in computer science, I participated in tens of them. I did win a couple of them as well, but regardless, the experience was something which was amazing. So you get to talk with people from RTA, which is Road and Transport Authority of Dubai, or TRA, which is telecommunications, or DEWA, which is Dubai Electricity and Water Authorities. All of these institutions or some universities also host, and you go ahead and participate. Microsoft organized some hackathons. You go ahead and you talk to these people, and you gain what is really required in the real world. What we are studying, is it really relevant?
Right.
And of course, I talked about UAE drones for good. That was another competition where we went as a team through IOTA. So all of these opportunities sort of open up, including the benefit of network standards.
Right.
So this is where the opportunities sort of open up.
Right. Apart from the PSTS and the competitions, there is an incubator at BITS Pilani Dubai campus, right, where students who have an idea can start up a company with that. So Dr. Sujala, coming to you, can you give a little information around the incubator?
Yeah, so like Saugat was just telling you, many times what happens is, like, students go for these hackathons and they win over there. So they would have already formed a kind of a team over here. And then, there is good prize money that they get in. So with that, there have been cases where students have, come back and actually started off with a startup. Nice. So right from we've even had cases where in the second year itself, students have already come up with a company. So we've had 2 or 3 such companies. In fact, last semester, there was a boy who did his thesis with me. He has a startup and they've raised about $80,000. Okay. So this is also a blockchain-based company, and where they work with solar panels and all that. So they're monetizing. They create solar panels and they're monetizing funds through this blockchain technology.
Right.
So there are
apart from this, there is assistantship also, right? So PA-ship, TA-ship. Saugat, I think you were also a project assistant while you were on campus.
There was the professional assistant for the dean, student welfare division.
Okay.
So I started that in the first year itself, and you go on, and I went on to do that. I'd gone on for the full 4 years.
Okay.
Which was an amazing experience, and you earn a little stipend on the side as well. But there are different opportunities as well. You can be an assistant in one of the labs, being just chemistry labs or whatnot, being computers. You can be an assistant in the computer labs, and let's say you're in 3rd year or 4th year, you're guiding your peers who are the first year staff, the first year students or the 2nd year students, and it's just it feels like a cycle that once you were sitting in those chairs, and now you're the ones who are guiding them and teaching them based on the experiences you've gained all these years.
Right. Interesting. Okay. So moving on from the opportunities, going to the future prospects. So of course, students enter computer science now. Computer science is a very popular stream now, and students enter it. But there are many opportunities with which they can exit out of the college, right? So Sujala, which are the kind of companies which have been coming for placements for computer science students?
Yeah, so placements, like as we can see, PwC has been one of the major recruiters of late. We have ESRI, we have Emirates, which comes in. There is MSD, Merck Sharp and Dome. So they've also consistently, over many years, they both take students for PS1, PS2, and also recruit them later.
What
We
about
have
the
Emerson.
So e-commerce has really picked up now. So are the
Noon,
companies...
yeah, right. So we have companies like Noon, which is equivalent to Amazon.
Right.
In fact, it is owned by the royal family here of Dubai. So it is a very good platform. And now every year they've been recruiting many of our students.
Right. Parv, where all have your friends joined in? So which are the companies where you can find BITS Pilani Dubai students?
There are different companies from Dubai, like PwC, of course, and then Dubizzle is there, and then Careem, which is like one of the Uber subsidiaries. And even my friends have came back to India and got the job over here, like Bain is over there, and BCG. So there are multiple kind of companies over there.
Right. So Agat, what about your friends?
They're all spread out really. So apart from jobs in companies, again, like I have friends from PwC, ESRI, Dubizzle, Noon, all of the other consultancy firms like Accenture or whatnot. People have sort of grown and taken the role of an entrepreneurial position or have gone for masters as well. So the scope really opens up.
So as you mentioned about masters and entrepreneurship, so which has been a popular destination for masters for computer science students from BITS Dubai?
I would say Carnegie Mellon is one of the popular ones, and it's one of the best ones as well. So that's an institution that everybody sort of aims for, or it being Stanford or MIT are also a couple of the top ones, and people have gotten admission in there. But CMU is one of the best ones for computers and for machine learning or data science, and not necessarily that the US is the goal for everybody. People have gone to Germany or Netherlands as well to continue to pursue their masters there, which is also an excellent decision.
Absolutely. And what about entrepreneurship? So do you know of people? Oh, first of all, did you or do you want to start up?
Yeah. Of course, I believe everybody's dream is just to give employment, not just stay employed somewhere. I have given it a thought, and thanks to the hackathons that I've participated in, I've sort of seen where this world goes. I would so I made this conscious decision of getting more experience first, staying in a larger company and seeing how startups work, how bigger companies work. I've seen startups as well along with my previous jobs. Seen this bigger company as well, and I believe this will lead on to launching a startup. I'm in no hurry really. My team. So I'm working in the emerging tech section, as an example. So I deal with all the emerging technologies, AR, VR, drones, IoT, etc., blockchain. So our team, even though it's a part of a bigger organization, it works as a little startup. Or people have a mindset of like an entrepreneurial mindset that they work with, and they also have to come up with POCs or MVPs to quickly show it to the company and see how it scales and how other companies might take this forward and build it.
Correct. Exactly. Correct. So even though you might be working in a larger company, you are sort of an entrepreneur itself because you work in a small team. Keep creating new and new products for that company, and if you're doing it for your own company, then you're an entrepreneur, right? Brilliant.
It's more of a mindset that matters than the position itself.
But what about you? So do you know of people, your batch, juniors, seniors, who started up? Any stories there?
Yeah, like a couple of my juniors have started some startups based on the blockchain technology. They were into automobiles first, then they shifted to health industry, and they've raised funding in Dubai itself, and they have a stable company over there. They're hiring people now. They're hiring people from a college as well. As Dr. Allah mentioned, like they're hiring people for the PS thing also.
Yeah. All right, coming to you, Miral, what are the future prospects like for a computer science engineer in terms of jobs?
There are a lot of scope for computer engineers out here. There are a lot of new fields coming up. Of course, there is AI and machine learning, data analysis. There's big data management. You could even get into like virtual reality. There's also something like computer vision. So a lot of these big tech companies that we know, which is like Google, Netflix, Amazon, Facebook, all of these companies use particular softwares, or particular engineers work towards giving solutions to problems so that their business can grow. So for example, in Netflix, there's something called recommendation systems, which is a ML based algorithm. The same thing in Amazon. So if you're shopping for a particular product again and again, they start recommending you similar items according to your taste. So all this happens by machine learning. And by machine learning, it's just that the machine learns your pattern and tries to predict something. Also, data science is something which is very important. A lot of companies rely and grow on data. They work on data. So for example, in Amazon, a lot of consumers that consume products, we try to take their data, we try to extract useful information, and we try to predict what the sales could be if we increase the price by this much, or what is the demand. So a lot of companies are using computer science field. You can get into animation, you can get into security. It's just growing. There's no end to it.
Yeah, if everything virtual is anyway based out of computer science, but now everything offline and virtual, both are technology driven. And
Yes.
that's where computer science comes into the picture. Because computer science, I think, is more about solving a problem. Writing a code is a very small part of the whole solution, right? Very interesting, very interesting. Great. So we talked about, first of all, we demystified a lot of terms, a lot of jargons which are there around computer science. Then we talked about how you can pick up skills while you're on campus at BITS Pilani, Dubai. And then we talked about the opportunities to grow in computer science while you are at BPDC. And finally, we talked about future prospects in jobs, in higher ed, and in entrepreneurship. Now coming to our final segment, which is about the advice. So, not everybody is made for computer science. Not everybody would like computer science, right? So in your experience, Dr. Sujala and everybody who's here, in your experience, how would you, a kind of, a dip test that you can give to grade 12 students, how should they know whether they're going to love computer science, whether they're going to excel at computer science? How can they decide, should they take computer science or take any other domain and then take up electives related to computer science? Dr. Sujala, your advice to grade 12 students.
Yeah, so one thing is, we've had students maybe who've done the 11th and 12th, they've done some computer science courses. So they are quite aware about it, but it need not be the case. Like we can even have a student who's completely new. Like the other day when we had a webinar, in fact, one of the participants, she was new to computer science. She did not do it in the 11th and 12th, but then now she's working in Apple in the US. So, right, these 4 years should be good enough for you to actually pick up your skills. So that should be the first, myth that students should remove from their mind, saying that only if I've done computer science in my 11th and 12th, I'll be able to do well. Definitely not the case. So anybody who has, I feel, in computer science, because it's a constantly evolving field, it should be somebody who's quick to pick up new technology. Okay. So anybody who has an interest, who thinks like he'll be able to pick up and learn new things, because that becomes something that is, I think, very, very important, fundamentally important in computer science. Right. So one could be programming skills. Second is just an aptitude and an interest to learn and constantly keep upgrading yourself. Right. So I think if these two things are there, and a kind of passion for the field, if these are the three key components that are there, I'm sure a student will definitely be able to excel in this area.
Very interesting. What about you, Parv? What would you suggest? How can a student know whether they're going to like computer science? So based on their grade 11, 12 performance, based on their likings of subjects in grade 11, 12, can you suggest them something?
So, first of all, I think all of the schools right now are introducing the computer science subjects in the 11th and 12th standard. So, students might already know about the basics of computer science. So, if they read about it and it's really fascinating for them, they're really interested about it, then they should take some other courses along with this computer science course. They should learn, there are many resources available online, so they can take those up, take small projects along with it, which will help them to actually apply those courses which they learn. And if they're able to do great in it and they're interested in it more, so then they should pursue, look for more possibilities in computer science.
Right. And of course, it's a very competitive admission process. So if they don't get computer science, they can enter with another stream and pick up the electives related to computer science when they are on campus. Right. Okay, Saugat. So what is your advice going to be for grade 12 students?
I don't think I'm insightful enough to give advices right now, but so I can just speak about myself when I sort of made the decision. Sort of feels like you're in the center of the ocean and you don't know which direction to go to, or which field to take. I think you just have to take a decision and stick to one, or you can have a little taste of everything before you finally take the plunge.
Right.
So that's why it's recommended for people to, even before college or even in your first year, you're given a taste of everything. You're even taught biology in your first year. So you're shown all the fields that are possible, and whichever place your interest falls into, you can always stick to that lane and follow along in that particular domain. But if you don't have the taste for it, then maybe just dive to the other side and see what computer science is, and then eventually you can opt for any other field, for example, healthcare, or for example, gaming industry, because computer science is virtually everywhere.
Right. Also, I wanted to ask you guys, so if somebody has taken up, say, C programming or C++ in 11th and 12th, and they have not liked it so much, programming is something that they don't like so much, but they like problem solving. So should they go for computer science?
It would depend on a lot of factors there, but computer science is first and foremost problem solving itself. So it gives you a clarity on how to solve problems and come up with algorithms. And algorithms need not be computer related. It's usually termed with like computer algorithms, but algorithms is more of a set of instructions that a person has to follow, be it like a cooking recipe or whatnot. You have to be very accurate with these terms.
Right.
So if you do like problem solving, unfortunately, most of the job is sometimes programming related itself. Right. And even if they've had the taste of C or C++, it's not like they hate programming altogether, because there are various other programming languages or data analytics or visualization tools that can make it much easier for you, which puts an abstraction layer on top of the programming. Right. But you can build on top of those softwares and do a drag and drops, or build layouts, or build pipelines, which can eventually solve problems, which is the ultimate goal anyways.
Right. The no code is a very emerging thing.
Yeah, that's also a big thing. Low code, no code solutions. So you can always forget about the underlying technology there, but you can build on top of what is out there.
All right. Viral, what about the higher ed prospect? So you might have seen your own friends, and you yourself went for masters. What is the trend like right now? Which specialization are people going for? Which kind of universities are they choosing for higher ed?
So a lot of my friends started pursuing their masters, and not just in computer science, and a lot of other specific specializations like data science, machine learning. As for masters, not just US, they also went to Australia and all the other countries where this is upcoming. I completed my master's in computer science with a specialization in data science. And other than that, I think security is something which is very important too.
Which are the popular universities? Which are the popular countries where people are going for masters?
A lot of my friends have come to US, of course, but they've also gone to Australia and Canada. Some of them have also gone to UK to do their masters. Right. So the world is open. It's just your interest. There's a lot of resources. Go ahead, grab that opportunity and do it.
Right. We have a separate episode, guys, anyway, around higher ed, where we've talked about how to select a university if you want to pursue masters and PhD. So go ahead and watch that episode if in case you're interested in pursuing masters post computer science. Okay, Meeru, let me ask you a different question here. Why did you choose computer science? And maybe that process would help our grade 12 students figure out if they want to go for computer science or
not. In my 12th standard, I had started learning Java, and it really interested me because it gave me this creative point of view to a lot of things. I could develop like tic-tac-toe games, and it was very interesting at that point of time that you just write a few lines of code and you have something new out there, that something that you can interact with or something that you can play around with. So I had a passion for coding at that point of time, and I had a natural instinct of logic. So if you give me a problem, I had this natural instinct as to how I would solve it and what my logic would be. What BITS gave me was how to learn these particular languages, or what is the logical thinking behind it, how to put it in proper words of code. I just had the mind to innovate something, and I also had the urge and the curiosity to keep learning every day. So I did my bachelor's of engineering in computer science and BITS, and I think it has been a great foundation for me for where I am right now. It's just helping you to evolve along with the technology, read more, dive deep into a lot of new projects that are coming up, do a lot of new projects, get out of your comfort zone. Just don't do what others are doing. Think of creative ideas. So this is what helped me.
Great. Thank you everyone for your inputs here. I'm sure grade 12 students would have gained a lot of information with this episode relating to computer science. All right, so grade 12 students, if you're looking to apply to BITS Pilani Dubai campus, there's a short video that we've created which will take you through a complete admission process for BITS Pilani Dubai campus.
Admission is currently open for BITS Pilani Dubai campus and is based upon the aggregate percentage secured by you in the 12th grade, as declared by the board. There is no separate admission test. The application process is very simple and you may apply online now. Start by signing up on admission.bits-dubai.ac.ae. You will receive a login password on your email. Use that to log into your account and fill in your personal and academic details. Keep the 12th grade marks column blank if the results are not declared. Then fill your preference order of engineering streams. Pay the application fee of 220 dirhams, upload the relevant documents, and your application is complete. You will receive your provisional offer letter on the registered email ID within a week's time. To accept the offer and confirm your provisional admission for the program of your choice, pay the requisite fee within 10 days of offer issued. Once your grade 12 results are declared, upload your mark sheet. Upon meeting the eligibility criteria, you will receive a final admission offer letter on your email. To confirm your final admission at BITS Pilani Dubai campus, pay the pending fee and upload your passport copy, photographs and other relevant documents. For non-UAE students, the institute will facilitate your visa, insurance, hostel and other formalities needed for you to shift to Dubai. Classes commence from 5th September 2021. Refer to our admission document for more details.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time.